executive director of the Edmonds Senior Center. We're a 501c3 nonprofit living in a city building, and quite happily now in this building since 1968. We're about to celebrate our 45th anniversary. We're doing a kind of a celebration and fundraiser on Friday night, November 15th. Senator Maria Cantwell is going to be keynote speaker, and there will be a number of other dignitaries. We'll have some really good music. It'll be a lot of fun event. We hope to raise a little money, but more particularly, we hope to really celebrate 45 years of service to this community. So you're all encouraged and invited. I would like to recognize a number of people connected with the center, although some of them are here in a different role in their board of directors role. But we have a number of people from our board. I saw Roger Hertrick, who's back here. Roger is on our board. Dave Page is on our board. Adrian Fraley-Moniz is on our board. And I'm forgetting someone. Alma Otomo, who will get introduced in another way on our board. I think I'm still missing somebody.
Steve.
Steve Bernheim. There he is over there, Steve. And we also have some past board members, Evelyn Wellington, who's here, longtime member of ACE. So we're delighted to see you all here. My job is really to welcome you, so welcome to the center. We're delighted to have you here this evening. And we've done, this is I think the third or fourth now candidates forum that we've done in conjunction with ACE and in the partnership with ACE, and we're delighted to have you again. So I give it over to John Reed, who is ACE's president. John.
On behalf of the Alliance of Citizens for Edmonds, I would like to also welcome you to the fourth City Candidate Forum that we have sponsored for each local election year since 2007. ACE was founded in 2004 as a 501c4 nonprofit by a group of citizens who were concerned that some proposed zoning changes in the downtown were inconsistent with the city's character and unique charm. ACE is not anti-development or against change. On the contrary, we support changes that consider the history and small town feel of Edmonds and that respect the open space, beauty, views, and other natural gifts that we are blessed to have. Our membership is open to all. If you are interested in learning more about ACE or in joining ACE, there's detailed information and some brochures out on the table where you came in the door. I want to introduce Alma Otomo, who will be our timekeeper tonight. All the questions will be allowed a 1.5 minute response time. And at 30 seconds, you'll get a warning. And at the end of your time, you'll hear a little beep, and she will hold up that it's time to sit down. And if you still don't sit down, she has new noises for you. Now I'd like to introduce Dr. Rich Sinderoff, who will moderate our forum this evening. Rich is a biopharmaceutical scientist by training. He is an ACE member and has served on the City Economic Development Commission since it was founded in 2009. He has also served on the Community Backyard Habitat for Edmonds Steering Committee and on the board of the Save the Rose House campaign. Rich?
Thanks, John. And I guess I'll start by continuing with the welcoming. I'd like to welcome and thank our Edmonds City Council candidates and all of you for attending this forum. Our sole purpose in putting on this forum is to help provide you with the information you need to make an informed choice when you vote. We are blessed to live in such a picturesque setting within a community having diverse interests that shape our personal visions for Edmonds' future. I believe most of us are here tonight to see how our personal visions align with those that seek to represent our interests. As such, the questioning is intended to be both topically relevant to current council considerations and of great community interest. Now for the rules. After a 1.5 minute opening statement, each candidate will be asked 5 questions from the categories of strategic planning, economic development, incentive zoning, Harbor Square, and environment versus development balance. Candidates will have, as John mentioned, up to 1.5 minutes to respond to each question. Next, each candidate will have 30 seconds to ask a question of his or her opponent, who will have 1.5 minutes to respond. And finally, each candidate will be allowed a 1.5 minute closing statement. And just before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone to please turn off cell phones as well as refrain from applause and audience interruptions during the question and answer period. But the candidates will be available to answer personal questions after that period ends. So I think that we can get started. Ready? And now we'll hear from Mr. Strom Peterson and Mr. Al Rutledge. Again, each of you will have a 1.5 minute opening statement. Mr. Peterson?
Great. Thank you, Dr. Senderoff. And thanks to the ACE Group and, of course, to the Senior Center for hosting this tonight. Also, thanks to Mr. Rutledge and the 4 other people that sat up here. This is certainly not an easy task. I have great admiration and often pity for people who are willing to stand up here and do this. But I think we're all called to serve in one way or another, and those of us that are doing this, I think this is one of the ways that we can serve our community. My name is Strom Peterson. I think, as most of you know, I've been on the City Council now for 5 years. I was appointed and then ran for and won election. In that time, am I getting a little too much feedback? No? Okay. In that time, I was served as council president for 2 years, which was a great honor through some big changes in Edmonds. We changed mayors. We had a lot of change on the city council, and I felt that my leadership helped kind of smooth the waters as we went through a lot of those tough years. Some of my greatest achievements and things that I wish to continue, of course, dealing with public safety. And I think, as most of you know, the environment is really one of my passions, and we'll touch on that in a couple of the questions coming up. I think this is a perfect example of why we need to protect the environment. When you look out that window right there to my left, and you see Puget Sound and the train tracks and the opportunities and some of the threats that those entail. So I look forward to another 4 years. I ask for your vote, and thank you all for coming out tonight.
Mr. Rutledge?
Yeah. My name is Al Rutledge. I'd like to thank the Senior Center for hosting this event this evening, along with the ACE and plus the Edmonds News is going to be putting this on also. I've been a resident here since 1986, which is almost 26 years. I started to go to the Edmonds City Council meetings when we moved in the area in about 1988. And at that time, you had your regular council meetings twice a month, the first and third Tuesdays. Then you had your workshop meetings on the 2nd and 4th. I attended all those meetings. I read them before. My worksheet shows me that I had 90% attendance. I have all the experience of going to the meetings, planning board, hearing meetings for several years in this town. I believe it was in 2006, right around 2005, that they changed the regular city council meetings for 3 weeks now, and the second Tuesday is a workshop meeting, but now they're coming back having 4 regular meetings monthly. So I need your support. I'm very experienced at the council, and years ago I attended all the meetings. Thank you.
Okay. And our first question is going to be an economic development question. Please provide 2 or 3 specific economic development steps that council has the direct authority to undertake, excluding increased residential development and raising building heights, that you would promote as council member to generate additional revenue for the city. And we'll begin with Mr. Rutledge.
Okay, that's very simple. We're here at the Senior Center this evening. I worked on a committee, the 2 past directors. The first one was a survey. We raised $30,000. It was $9 million, taking the Senior Center down. The second one was we raised $27,000 for $13 million. We're talking Highway 99 development. You have the museum over here right now is talking about doing the development of their building. There's 2 other ones in town. Look across the street here, what you have, the improvements in here. So we have to do our development down here in Edmonds and downtown at the same time as Highway 99. Highway 99, Linwood has a process going on now of going 90 feet, but they have unrestricted zoning there right now.
Mr. Peterson?
Great. There are a couple of things kind of in a broad aspect that I think the city council can do and that we have done over the last few years. One is to help not only businesses, not only to attract businesses, but to retain the businesses that we have. We've done some increased funding in our economic development department. We have, I'd say, one of the best economic development directors in the state with Stephen Clifton, who's done an incredible job of going out and recruiting businesses. Dick's Drive-In, Panera Breads, those are a couple of kind of high water marks, especially Dick's Drive-In. I mean, that's a great burger. But you also look at things like a Swedish hospital and the incredible amount of work that's being done up there. So there are things actively that city government can do to attract buildings. But I think one of the other things that city government can do is sometimes we just have to get out of the way. We recently passed and supported a business improvement district in downtown Edmonds. This gives downtown businesses an opportunity to assess themselves fees, collectively come up with ideas on how to increase business, how to help the community in these very specific districts. And I think those are how we look for a balance in city government. City government can't do it all, and sometimes it's just best to get out of the way. I'm a strong believer in what government can do, but I also believe as a small business owner that sometimes we have some pretty good ideas ourselves. So it's important to find that balance, and I think over the last, especially the last couple of years, but really the last 5 years since I've been on the council, we've made some great strides in doing that. Thanks.
And then the next question will be environment versus development balance. Edmonds is blessed with valuable open spaces, including beaches, an intertidal marsh wildlife sanctuary, streams and other natural areas, as well as views, especially in our downtown bowl area. This is offset by the need for economic development that supports a sustainable economy and funds city services. Factors associated with pedestrians, cars, trains, and ferry traffic, safety, and tourism also come into play. Describe what you believe is the proper balance between these 2 competing priorities and why. Mr. Peterson.
Great. This is a fantastic question because part of me, I think in some ways the question creates a false narrative. I think for years that we've looked at economic development and the environment as being competitive. But I think what we've really realized in, I think, the Puget Sound area and especially in Edmonds itself is that they don't have to compete, that they are not mutually exclusive. But if you create quality environmental buildings with a real sense of the environment at its core, that's good economic development. We look at something like the marsh. What a fantastic opportunity, and I know we're going to touch on Harbor Square, but that's a great opportunity that can combine quality economic development with cleaning up the marsh. And of course, again, we look out at Puget Sound. Puget Sound in this region is the #1 economic driver for the state of Washington. If we don't keep that clean, that's not going to happen. So I think the idea that economic development is way over here and the environment is way over here, I think the community of Puget Sound and I think Edmonds has really led the way in kind of blowing that premise out of the water, no pun intended. So I think that, of course, we look at both of them at the same time. And I think we're doing a really good job, especially with some members on the city staff, of incorporating not looking at it as one or the other, but how they both work together. And I think that's the kind of mentality that we need to go into when it comes to any kind of development or any kind of environmental regulation, that these are cohesive elements. Thanks.
Mr. Rutledge?
Yeah, the regulations have been brought up several times in the past. Presently, the city council is looking at where you're going to go in the future here. Puget Sound out here, you have a cleanup. Environmental, you have to watch very closely here of the salmon runs and so forth that come through here. And you have to be very careful what you're going to do here in the next few years in this city. Your development is the main thing that you have to look at to keep the city afloat here. You got to keep in mind that your population might switch up the other way. And so you got to make sure you keep the development down here in Edmonds.
Okay. The next question is going to be the incentive zoning question. Incentive zoning establishes baseline zoning requirements, but offers developers allowances such as height bonuses, parking flexibility, fee waivers or reductions, and permitting priority in exchange for public benefits such as affordable housing, open space and recreation, utility enhancements, historic preservation, and increased environmental protection. Do you consider incentives intended to provide a return in terms of public benefits for potential zoning accommodations a viable approach to bridge divides between future development and community values? If not, why? If so, how might you apply this to Five Corners, considering the unique attributes of this business district and surrounding neighborhood? Please distinguish between required benefits and optional benefits. And Mr. Rutledge, you can start.
Yes, your optional benefits is very important here. Right across the street here, we had an application coming in for housing. That went up to Mount Lake Terrace. Your affordable housing is you have to have here in this town. Your neighbor city, which happens to be Seattle, has got a big problem because they're only going to have 500 to 600 affordable housing units with 10,000 population. They figure 100,000 in 5 years. This is ghost management here. So affordable housing is what we have to have here somewhere in the city to make sure that we keep your Growth Management Act completely here in town here. This is where your growth is going to be coming into the city.
Good. All right.
Mr. Peterson?
I do support incentive zoning. I think one of the things that incentive zoning really does is put the city, us, the city council, in the driver's seat. I think for a long time, the theory has been that developers are going to come in and extract whatever they want, and the city's kind of at their mercy. What I like about incentive zoning, and I think the work that, as Ms. Johnson pointed out, the work that the UW group has done and the work that we're doing on the city council and on the planning board, is finding ways where the city and the community gets what they want first. Let's put out the ideas that we want. Five Corners, I think, is a great example. It's very unique because it's very small. It's not as big as Westgate, certainly not as impactful as maybe Harbor Square. But I think it's a great opportunity to find some affordable housing opportunities so we can get young families moving into Edmonds, so seniors that want to downsize from a single family home might be able to find something smaller and still live in the town that they love. Of course, environmental incentives are always going to be number one on my list, to get some LEED Platinum certified buildings, some LEED Gold certified buildings, or such an equivalent, and we're working with the planning board on some of those ideas. But again, I think the really great thing about incentive zoning is that it puts us, the citizens of Edmonds, in the driver's seat. We will now dictate what we want and have the developers come to us with some ideas. And I think that's a great way to turn that conversation around. Thanks.
And the next question will be about Harbor Square. In 2006, and again last year, redevelopment proposals for the near waterfront properties, including Harbor Square, Salish Crossing, and the Vatika Indian Restaurant, have failed. Why do you believe these efforts have been unsuccessful, and what types of development would you advocate for in the Harbor Square area? Please address building heights, density in residential, and other potential uses. Mr. Peterson.
Great. In a minute and a half. I want to start in 2006. I look around and there are a lot of people, including myself, that were on that work group of 33. Farrell, I think you were on that work group of 33. Don Hall, you were on that work group. Dave Page, you were on that work group. Susan, were you on that? You weren't on that. Why not? We needed you. Anyway, a lot of people were on that, and I remember the conversations back then, very little talk about the environmental impact of the marsh. That's not why it blew up. It blew up for any number of reasons. I think a lot of it was the property owners at the time really had no great interest in any kind of sensible development. But then I fast forward to a few years in this recent conversation with the port, where the marsh was one of the centerpieces of our discussions and what we can do to support the marsh, how we can clean up the marsh in that kind of development envelope. So the amount of improvement from 2006 to now is incredible. And I think the next step is to kind of continue that momentum. I think, as Ms. Johnson pointed out, we have some really good opportunities at some kind of public-private partnerships. I think where the public feels a little more involved. I think the port did a great job, but sometimes it can feel a little insular when groups kind of get together. So I think we have a great opportunity of engaging more of the public and really, of course, engaging the property owners. We have to talk to the new property owners at Salish Crossing. They've already done some great improvements to the property. And of course, the Port of Edmonds needs to be involved as well.
Mr. Rutledge?
The reason I believe that the thing really did, Harbor Square ran into a lot of problems. They had a lot of community meetings I attended. I did talk to the director over there. He had 2 of them. The main problem is that they're building, building heights. I suggested to them to go up there and talk to all the people up there that were involved with their buildings blocking views. They didn't ask me to do it. No, I guess nobody did. And they figured about 330 to 350 homes. You have to figure that they wanted to build, and they had to make an agreement with most of those people, either make a trade-off, have them move into a new building or whatever. That never happened. There were several meetings and everything, so basically the answer is no. You had to get those people up on that hill that blocking views, have them come down and tell you they wanted it. They never did. So it's a dead issue.
Okay. And our last question, before you ask each other a question, is about strategic planning. In April of this year, the council adopted the strategic action plan, which was based on broad community input. What 2 or 3 action plan items will you advocate for, and what steps will you take to ensure that the strategic plan becomes efficiently implemented? Are there any instances where your personal beliefs take precedent to public opinion, and what are they? And Mr. Rutledge.
There was several items in there, I believe it was 60 or 70. You have to go through and go each one at each time, and to make sure that you come out with the right plan. Like I say, we're sitting here at the senior center or whatever. There's different plans that are coming through the whole system. And it takes a lot of work to get these projects out to the public, and then have the public come in on a table and come to and tell you what they want, each one. That is what your plan has to be. If you have to go out to the community, that's where you go. If you got to be right here on the plans, that's what it is. There's a whole bunch of plans in that system. And it's a big problem for the city council because they can't be interested in a certain project. They have to be fair when they decide what they want to do.
Mr. Peterson?
Great. You know, I'm going to touch on the second part of that question about kind of personal opinion trumping public opinion. Because one of the things that was very interesting about the strategic plan was there was no mention of public safety. And I think that's because most people feel that we have a good public safety system in our community, that we have good police, we have good fire and EMT services, but I'm not going to take the lack of public safety being in the plan as an excuse to not deal with the important elements of public safety. So that might be one area where my personal opinion might trump at least what is perceived as a public opinion, because there's not a single actually action plan on public safety, but pretty much guarantee that's always number one on every elected official's mind. Some of the other issues, of course, I think that some of the stronger issues that are in my wheelhouse, business recruitment and development, of course, was way up on the list, and that ranges from anywhere up on Highway 99 on down to the Bowl and Five Corners, as we talked about before. As a small business owner, I think it's imperative that we do that so we get good local jobs and support good, especially locally owned businesses. I think obvious to no one's surprise, one of my other big issues is the environment. That popped up a number of times. That deals with any number of issues, whether it's bike lanes and sidewalks, so we have safe routes to schools, so kids can get out and kind of enjoy the sunshine and make sure that we have a healthy community, to parks and some of the other open space areas. Thanks.
And now you can ask your opponent a question. 30 seconds to ask. Mr. Peterson?
Great. Mr. Rutledge, in running for the city council, I'm curious, if you were elected, what do you think is lacking in maybe a skill set that's currently on the city council? What would you bring to the city council that isn't there right now?
Audience comments. I've been going for a number of years, and including my opponent, they just sit up there. If I'm elected on the city council, I guarantee you, I don't care who you are or what your issue is, I'm going to ask you your name, your address, your phone number. I'm going to go out and talk to you. They do not do this, and this is one of the main problems of the city council is they're either deaf up there, they don't understand, and that's the answer. That was what I would do if I'm elected as a city council member. I guarantee you that I'll be out to your home.
And Mr. Rutledge, a question for Mr. Peterson.
This question has been bothering me, why it has not been brought up in all these forums, but I'll bring it up today. Everybody talks about Highway 99 development. So let me ask my opponent, Highway 99 has an adult entertainment zoning. If the city had to move that area there from adult entertainment, that's my opponent, what other parts of the city would be able to move it to? It's up there now, it's been there for years. Do you think businesses are going to move up there when they find out that it's adult entertainment? Where would you move the zoning to, or do you keep it there and just let the businesses come in with the zoning?
Well, I don't foresee moving an adult entertainment zone to, say, Five Corners or Westgate or Firdale. I think those are especially more neighborhood-oriented. I'm not exactly sure the zoning that you're referring to. I think the zoning on 99 is, we have the 99 task force. City Council obviously has been very focused on Highway 99 and what we can do. As is the strategic plan. So I think we continue to work on that area, looking for whether it's a car dealership, some of the improvements that we'll be making to the street system up there, I think will be a great impact. And also partnering with some of our neighboring cities to see what we can do jointly to find improvements on 99, both from a public safety aspect, from an aesthetic aspect. I think these are all things that we can really start to tackle here in the next few years now that the economy is turning around. I think we have some opportunities, and And I've been proud to work with some of our neighboring cities and to see what especially Shoreline has done with their Highway 99 area. I think we can continue that kind of aesthetic and artistic improvement. We've got some of the funding in place, so I'm looking forward to making some of those accomplishments here in the next few years.
And now it's time for closing statements. Mr. Rutledge?
Yes, Alvin Rutledge. Like I mentioned to you tonight, I've been attending meetings for several years. I think we need a change in the city. The city has not moved the way it should be moving on. We have a general balance of $10 million end of this year. For example, I'm up on Lake Ballinger. We have flooding problem there. We have to go to the government, to the state, to try to get some money to fix the water up in the lake. We're told there's no money down here. So this is why we need to move on. In different parts of the city, we have different things, also people that need road improvements here, which has not been mentioned too much tonight. We have potholes in the city. We can call the department to get that done. There's several issues here that the funding should be put out with at the same time. And one of the last things I would do is get a visiting bureau director in town here. We had one years ago that was eliminated out. And you talk about bringing money into the city. You hire somebody to come in here that can run that department. It comes out of the $600,000 that the mayor put in for the budget to put the council to put anything they want with that $600,000. I would take probably half that on the 3-year contract to somebody, because it costs the city the taxpayers no money. We have to bring in business here. We got to bring in revenue into the city.
Great. I'm tempted to go over to see what a couple of those other buttons might. The cow noise I'm okay with. As a cheesemonger, I'm okay with the cow noise. But, one of the issues that I think is very important that I've talked about a lot during the campaign and especially in the last couple of years, and that I think is very important to this institution in particular, the Senior Center, is the issue of coal trains. It's not only an environmental hazard, which I think nobody's surprised that I'm upset about, but it's a public safety hazard. Being that the Senior Center is on the other side of the tracks from any of our public safety, our police station, our firehouses, any of that, it's a real concern of mine when you're looking at trains that are well over a mile long that could easily stop on the tracks and leaving access to the Senior Center and many of the other buildings on the side of the tracks in great danger. So it's something that I've been working on with the mayor, with our state delegation, et cetera, to really try to find some solutions to that problem. I was here a number of months ago with Congressman McDermott. He had a little open house here. Councilmember Freeland Illis and I were down here with him, and I was just blown away by the in-your-face questions that the congressman got about coal trains. It was exciting. Of course, he is working on some of these issues in Washington for us as well. But I know that this is a dedicated community, not only to the environment, but to public safety. Again, I hope to echo those concerns for the next 4 years on the City Council. Again, I'd like to thank ACE and the Senior Center, everybody here for showing up tonight. I ask for your vote this coming November, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get hold of me. votestrom@gmail.com is probably the best way to do that. Thanks. Have a great night.
And how about a round of applause for our timekeeper who was operating a very tricky device. And I understand